sciences, Einstein is a good example. His first insight into the basis of special relativity occurred around 1895, and his theory was created and published in 1905. So is Darwin, whose theory of natural selection was conceived in 1838, 10 years after Darwin immersed himself in science at Cambridge University in 1828. Wren's design for St. Paul's Cathedral, the so-called Great Model of 1673-74, was constructed 10 years after his first architectural commission in 1663. Faraday demonstrated the electromagnetic principles of the motor and the dynamo in 1821, a decade after he began studying science in 1810. Kekule's theory of the benzene ring was published in 1865, about 10 years after his first dream of his structural theory on a London omnibus. Pauling's quantum mechanical theory of the chemical bond was published in 1931, 10 years after he started to study the problem at university in 1920-21. Berners-Lee invented the World Wide Web in 1990, 10 years after his first web-like computer program. It is not difficult to multiply examples. The arts frequently show the rule in cooperation. 2. Percy Bysshe Shelley created Creative Explosion of 1819-20, The Mask of Anarchy, Prometheus Unbound, and other works occurred 10 years after he wrote and published his first poetry and fiction in 1809-10. Ernest Hemingway's The Sun Also Rises was written in 1925-26, 10 years after he began publishing fiction and journalism in his school magazine. Picasso's Les Demoiselles of the Davignon was painted in 1907, a decade after he began training as an artist in Barcelona in 1896. Henry de Toulouse-Lautrec at the Moulin Rouge was painted in 1892, 10 years after he entered the atelier of his first art teacher in 1882. Satyajit Ray's first film, Pather Pachali, was completed in 1955, a decade after he created woodcuts to illustrate an edition of the original novel in 1944 and began writing scenarios. Igor Stravinsky's The Rite of Spring was composed in 1912, 10 years after he began his apprentice to Nikolai Rimsky-Korsakov in 1902. When even the Beatles seemed to obey the rule, they composed Sgt. Pepper's Lovely Hearts Club Band in 1967, 10 years after John Lennon started playing with Paul McCartney in 1937. The diminishing role of Parliament from Bimal Jalan's India's Politics, a View from the Backbench. The diminishing role of Parliament. The Prime Minister of India, in a speech at the award functions in April 2006, echoed a sentiment about India's democracy that is widely shared among its admirers all over the world. He said our democracy was not built on simple principle of the rule of majority. It was, I believe, built on the idea of unity in diversity. That is the most important idea that Gandhiji and Panditji gave us. The idea of building a consensus, it is a great liberal idea which rejects extremes and extremism. And nowhere else is India's achievement in realizing the goal of unity in diversity and its effort to build a consensus more visible than in the two houses of parliament. The Parliament of India is truly representative of the vast economic, social, regional and religious diversity of India. All income classes are represented, from the richest industrialist to poorest farmer. All castes, all regions find equitable representation depending on their size, population, electoral majority. Members belong to different regions and can openly and freely espouse their beliefs irrespective of their members. In the midst of the great diversity, there is also unity. Every member has a single vote and an equal right to intervene in the debate independently or on behalf of a party. The time and space allotted to party or non party members is also equitably distributed depending on their numbers. Ministers speak on behalf of government but have no special privileges or ostentatious perquisites or attendance inside the House. Any member is free to interrupt, shout, or otherwise disrupt the proceedings of the House, irrespective of seniority, and is subject only to directions of the chair inside the House. While there is discussion and debate on important matters, and there are strong political differences among the parties within and outside the government, most legislative proposals and official resolutions are adopted without dissent. Any reader of India's rich history of parliamentary proceedings has much to be proud of. The parliament is the supreme forum of India's democracy and represents the will of the people and their different identities. Except for some brief aberrations, such as during the period of emergency 1975 to 77. Successive governments have also been sensitive to the views of Parliament on issues of high national policy, foreign affairs, and defense. While all this is true, below the surface in recent years, there has been a subtle change in the role of Parliament which is not evident at first glance. All citizens who follow the news in the media and who watch parliamentary proceedings are aware of and perhaps disappointed by the frequent disruptions that now occur in two houses. The concern with the functioning of India's parliament and state legislatures in recent years was also voiced by National Commission to review the working of the constitution. My purpose is drawing attention to the diminishing role of Parliament in the conduct of national affairs is broader than what has been highlighted by the Commission in the above passage. In the context of coalition politics, there is also increasing acceptance by political leaders of the frequent violation of democratic norms and conventions in the political decision-making process. As a result, there is a possible threat to the preservation of the cherished goals. Unity in diversity, which, as mentioned by the Prime Minister, was an important gift to the nation from the leaders by Mahatma Gandhi and Jawaharlal Nehru in the early years of the country's freedom. Some signs of the increasing divide in the national mainstream are already evident. As many as 160 districts of India are under the influence of Naxalites and function largely outside